5 out of the 6 candidates.
Right.
So thank you again
My
for
pleasure.
coming, and we'll see you soon.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
You're watching What's Cooking with Renee. That was Don Morgan. He's one of the mayor candidates for the city of Pasadena. And we're coming back with another candidate and a debate. So stay tuned. We'll be back after these messages. What's Cooking with Renee? That was good.
Thanks.
A lot of fun.
So I'd like to give you 5 healthy dieting tips to remain consistent with your workout. The first one is to eat regular meals throughout the day. This will help to keep energy levels stable and keep your blood sugar levels stable so that your body works properly. The second is to drink water throughout the day. I try to challenge my clients by drinking at least a small amount of water every hour on the hour. The third one is don't eat anything processed. If it has chemicals or anything on the label that you don't understand and can't read, don't eat it.
I think I have to agree with Ms. Robinson. I think the most pressing issue is the embezzlement, and that's got to be brought to a conclusion. The public has to know what happened, how it happened, who was involved, make sure it never happens again. And so I think that's a pressing issue.
Welcome back to What's Cooking with Renee. I am your host, Shay Renee, and we have a special episode today. We have the mayor candidates for the city of Pasadena here, and we're featuring a few candidates, and we're doing a debate shortly. So today I have Bill Thompson here. Thank you so much for being here.
My pleasure, thank you.
So let's get right into it. Where were you born and raised?
I was born in Sharon, Pennsylvania, and I was raised in Pennsylvania. My father was a civil engineer, and so he moved around a bit. And most of my time, I think, was probably spent in St. Mary's, Pennsylvania, where I went to high school and met my wife.
Nice. So what was your childhood like?
Well, I was an only child, and so that was kind of interesting. And I guess I got special attention because of that. And there were times when I would prefer to have had some siblings, I think. For example, when we would come to vacations, my parents were from other areas, and so I would get taken from where I was in Pennsylvania playing baseball or whatever it might be down someplace else. And so other than that, it was wonderful. My parents were fantastic. I'm really very grateful to them.
I love it. So who do you admire the most? Like, who are your idols?
Winston Churchill is, I think, by far the person I admire the most, because if you look back in history and read about him in the Second World War and his role in that, it would be a tremendously different world today but for Winston Churchill. And so I have great respect for him. I think also in terms of U.S. people, Dwight Eisenhower comes to mind. I don't think he gets enough credit for the role that he played in the Second World War, leading the U.S. And Allied forces in their attacks on the invasion of France in Normandy, for example, was work between Churchill and Eisenhower and others, and tremendously well done. And so I think, again, he's an individual for whom I have great respect.
So who do you have the least respect for?
Well, that's a good question. I have to think a little bit about that. There are a number of people who come to mind, and I will not identify them by name, but I would say people I do not have much respect for are those who will say one thing and do the opposite. To me, yes means yes and no means no, and when you take that position, you should stick with it, and I try to do exactly that.
Yeah, well said. So if you had 3 wishes, what would they be?
Well, number one, I would wish to become the mayor of Pasadena once again. I've been there before, served before 2 years, a part of my my 16 years in the Pasadena City Council representing District 7. I served as mayor, so I know what the job is, and I think that's one wish I would have. Another wish, if I could go back and redo my physical body and all that, I'd love to play tennis at Wimbledon. That's not going to happen for obvious reasons, but That and I think again, I would love to go back and redo some of my background. I taught an adjunct faculty member at Fuller Seminary. I'd love to go back and redo that if I had the time to do it. So those are three good things I like to do.
I love it. So what is your personal agenda of issues that you want to resolve?
Well, that's a very good question. Number one is obviously the embezzlement. That has to be brought to a close. I mean, we've got city council members and people who chair the finance committee of the council and serve on the municipal services committee, and they're attempting to take credit as being the person who uncovered all this embezzlement, even though it took 11 years before somebody actually did that. So that's got to be brought to a conclusion. I want to bring in the state controller to do a total audit of all the city operations, not because I believe there are other things that may be wrong, but let's find out now, not a year or 2 years from now. But we have to know what happened to our taxpayers' money, how did it happen, who was responsible, and make sure it never happens again. So that's one thing. Second thing I would do, I think the city has to become much more business friendly. If you go up and down South Lake Avenue, for example, or East Colorado or Northwest Pasadena, you find many vacancies. And why would Avery Dennison leave Pasadena for Glendale to move its headquarters after 30+ years here? So we have to put together a development team with our citizens and City Hall staff to really go after businesses, to make them, help them through the permit process, and also to keep them here if they have any thoughts or have any needs. We got to address that. The third thing is education. I'm currently an elected trustee at Pasadena City College and also the president of the Pasadena Educational Foundation. So I'm very much interested in education, which I believe is the issue of our time, because internationally, as a nation, we've gone from the top of the list down to about the middle third. And so we have to really take steps to get our act together. We're doing that at PCC, working with the Pasadena Unified School District, and I want to continue doing exactly that, working with PCC, PUSD, the Pasadena Educational Foundation, and the city, because we need to reach out more. I think one thing I would like to do is embark on a campaign to raise money privately to put children from underprivileged households to be able to go to preschool. Because the record shows very clearly that if you the earlier you get started in education, the more likely you're going to be successful in life, and that's what I need to do. Other issues obviously are police and the crime and the resources the police need to do their job properly. Firefighters, the same thing. Those are key issues I will address if I'm elected mayor and take office.
So I have just a few more questions. Can rivalries and egos get in the way of running a community?
Oh, absolutely. No question about it. I think we're seeing some of that taking place now with our city council. And
good. Last question. It's a two-part question. Why do you think you're worthy to be mayor of Pasadena, and what are your passions?
Well, first of all, my passion is for all of Pasadena. We've been here for 40+ years. Our children were raised here, went through the public schools here, went on to great colleges and doing extremely well. Our entire family lives locally. So that's my passion for all of Pasadena. I have the experience of being mayor. I know how to do the job, what the job is. I think I've established within the community respect, integrity, trust. People realize, again, the yes means yes, no means no for me, and I don't tell you one and do the opposite. So you have to be like that, and I think I've got the reputation, the experience, and the leadership ability and style and temperament to do a good job as the mayor, and I would look forward to doing exactly that once again.
Thank
I want to make
you.
Pasadena even better.
Sounds good. We're looking forward to this debate. I want to thank you again for being a part of the feature. Make sure you stay tuned. We'll be back with all the candidates after these messages. You're watching What's Cooking with Renee. Welcome to What's Cooking with Renee. I am your host, Shay Renee. We have a special episode today. We have the mayor candidates for the city of Pasadena here today, and we're conducting a debate. Welcome, candidates.
Thank
you.
So we'll get right into the questions. What do you think is the most important issues the town is facing? So we'll start with you, Mr. Harden.
Well, I think the most important issue the city is facing is public safety. Me being from the Northwest, it's an issue that we have to deal with, and I believe if the community doesn't feel safe, there's a lot of things that we can't do as a community, and we have to adjust that.
Okay, how about you, Mr. Morgan?
I think the three issues that I've talked about most frequently, they're pretty much inseparable, are jobs in the economy, workforce housing to support those jobs, and obviously education, public education in particular, as really a key component to driving people into those jobs, as well as our ability to bring people into our community to work in incredible positions, knowing that they can send their kids to really great schools.
All right. How about you, Ms. Robertson?
Well, right now the city is working through the embezzlement issue that we found ourselves in as of December 2014, and I think whichever of us are elected, the mayor is going to have to deal with reestablishing public trust, because that emanates across pretty much every issue that the mayor and the city council is going to have to deal with. And so reestablishing public trust, transparency, ensuring that the current protocols that Mayor Bogart has put in place by way of the Citizen Task Force and the Ad Hoc Committee of the City Council has its opportunity to share the lessons learned from this incident, and ensuring that the public knows how we're going to prevent it from happening again.
Okay. And Mr. Thomas?
Thompson.
Excuse me. Mr. Thompson.
All right.
Excuse me.
Definitely called worse than that, that's for sure. Quite recently. I think I have to agree with Ms. Robinson. I think the most pressing issue is the embezzlement, and that's got to be brought to a conclusion. The public has to know what happened, how it happened, who was involved, make sure it never happens again. And so I think that's a pressing issue. Also, I think we need to become a much more business-friendly city than we have been. When we lose companies like Avery Dennison after 30-plus years of being here with its headquarters, now the headquarters is in Glendale, one has to wonder what happened and why. And so we really need to have a development team in place that helps people get through the permitting process, the other requirements, and be able to come here, locate here, and stay here. And so that, plus public education, as I've talked about before, as an elected trustee at Pasadena City College and president of the Pasadena Educational Foundation, I'm really passionate about education. We have to really make sure every child in this community has the opportunity for a great education and comes out of it, graduates from high school, qualified to go on to college and or get a job.
All right, thank you so much. Mr. Shea.
Well, I think the most important issue that's pressing Pasadena is threefold. One, as I've shared with the voters, I love the city, and I believe whomever's in office must know the city. They must know all 7 districts, have a real understanding of what is going on in all 7 districts, not only the districts that they've been elected to in or live in. They really need to know all of it. Otherwise, they will not be inclusive. And I think Mayor Bogart articulated that the best in his State of the City address. And he said that whomever takes office need to be passionate, need to be effective, and know the entire city. And certainly my belief is that only one candidate holds that position, to know the entire city, because I've lived in 6 of the 7 districts. In the 7th district that I did live in, my business has been there for 30 years plus on Lake and Cordova. The other issues are centered around trust. I think with the embezzlement, it truly shows that we cannot, and I'm emphatical in this point, bring forth the same type of administrators. If we do that, we are likely to run into the same issues. This is a complacency issue based on culture, and I would